Well, here we are in a record store in Toronto, and look who's here. Jeopardy star Mattea Roach. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, and I love being surrounded by albums. The very first album I ever bought was this one, Elton John, Captain Fantastic, and I thought maybe we could start with a little bit of Elton John trivia for you.
All right, we'll give it a try.
Elton John had 7 #1 singles on Billboard in his career. All you have to do is name 2 Elton John songs that were #1.
So I think one of them, because this was like there was some sort of record involving the Princess Diana funeral version of Candle in the Wind. So yes. I think that's one of them. And then that record was like only broken by, I think it was like Lil Nas X. Can't nobody tell me nothing. And I will have to cast my mind back for something else. I know Benny and the Jets like was a soul, like it went to the top of like the R&B soul charts, so I'll say that, but I don't know if it was like an overall hit.
Absolutely, you've nailed it. That is so impressive. There is so much that's impressive about Mattea. Let's take a look at some Jeopardy highlights, then I have some questions for you.
It has been a pleasure watching you play the game. You finish your remarkable streak in the top 5 all time for both longest Jeopardy streaks and most money won. Mattea?
What's beer?
Right.
What is maternity leave?
Yes.
What is gross national happiness?
You got it.
Did you say your student loan is
My student loan is paid off.
Congratulations.
That's it.
There it is. It's gone.
What did they write down? What is a question mark?
Mattea Roach was invited back for Jeopardy's Tournament of Champions. And on Friday night, her impressive run came to an abrupt end when she lost her semifinal match.
I hope that people remember me as a player that was a lot of fun to watch and a player that created some interesting television by not having that many runaway games.
So, your second run at Jeopardy, the Tournament of Champions, how do you feel?
I feel good. I'm proud of how I did, I think, in the end, right? To get to play Jeopardy even one time, one game is like such a huge honor and is a life highlight, I think, for most people who get to do it. And so the fact that I now have gotten to play in total 26 games of Jeopardy, 24-2 record is something that I feel pretty happy with. And yeah, I mean, would I prefer to have done a little bit better this time around? Of course, who wouldn't? But I think the experience of getting to go back, it felt kind of like going home or alternatively like going to summer camp. You know, you're seeing your Jeopardy friends that you don't normally get to hang out with. You're seeing the fantastic team. You're seeing these other contestants. I had so much fun.
Now, your first run, I was one of those people who hadn't been watching Jeopardy for a long time. I got drawn in and then I got obsessed with how you were doing. You suddenly became a household name, certainly in Canada. What's changed for you since then?
Well, I think it's kind of easiest to say what hasn't changed, which is actually a lot. I think people, you know, sometimes assume, oh, well, you have money, or what are you, like, living in some kind of mansion eating caviar every day? Like, no, of course not, right? Money doesn't go really that far. So, you know, I've had so many cool opportunities come across my desk as a result of everything that's happened with Jeopardy and, like, things that I could have never really imagined at the time that I first started taping the show. So the fact that I'm now, you know, getting to host a podcast and talk about, you know, Canadian politics every 2 weeks with a rotating panel, like, that's not something I saw myself doing at the start of this year. I don't know. I kind of feel like my life is still in the process of changing because of Jeopardy. The journey with the show might be over, you know, for now. Who knows? Maybe they'll bring me back for some sort of anniversary thing. You never really know.
When our producer asked you what would be an interesting place to do the interview, you mentioned a record store, and here we are and rotate this, and I thought, what an interesting choice for a relatively young person. What's your connection with records?
I never had records growing up, but my dad, as a teenager in high school, but especially when he went to university for the first time, he was at St. FX, and he tells these stories of, you know, listening to records late into the night in a buddy's dorm room and things like that. So I definitely developed a love of music from my dad, and a lot of my taste kind of comes from him. And he actually, at one point, gave me some of his old records from his collection. So that's kind of like the starting off point of me and records. But there's something to me about having like a physical copy of something that shows, okay, this is something I really care about and that I am going to take care of because they're kind of fragile, and I'm going to, you know, give it pride of place in my house. There's something like a little extra special about it.
One of the nice things about sitting down and talking to you is that I can ask kind of random questions about your life and about your reaction to especially that first run on Jeopardy. And one of the things I remember is one of the U.S. news organizations sent out a tweet, right? And they described you as a lesbian tutor from Canada.
Yeah, something like that.
And I remember looking at that thinking, really? Like, that's the first line that they're going to put in their tweet? It just seems so odd and inappropriate to me. What was your reaction to it?
So I didn't have as kind of strong of a negative reaction as I think a lot of people did. There were many people who kind of also felt that it was an inappropriate way to describe me. What I did not like is I just thought it was kind of clumsily worded, just because the framing of lesbian tutor, people were like, well, what is she teaching? Like, is she, somebody asked me, if you were like teaching like lesbian skills, what are you teaching? Are you teaching like getting along with your exes? Like, are you teaching, I don't know, some lesbians like camping, like what are you teaching, camping? It was just like an ambiguously worded headline. And so that was what I didn't like about it. But when it comes to Jeopardy, like obviously the sexual orientation or any other identity factor of contestants is really quite secondary to how they play the game. But it's not secondary when you're talking about somebody who's becoming a public figure and in some senses a representative for communities, right? So I think that, like for me, I mean, I'm obviously quite young and I'm lucky to have grown up in a time where, like I remember gay marriage debates being a big thing in high school in the US, but it was kind of a settled issue here by the time I was like coming of age. But like I still remember not really seeing much in the way of representation on television. Like I remember watching Glee as a kid and just being kind of like, there's something about those two cheerleaders that I really find interesting, and not quite knowing what that was. But that was like all that I really had growing up. There wasn't as much variety with representations, right? And I think for some people that have been watching Jeopardy for a really long time, there is like real meaning there, I think, to being out and being like your whole self when you're talking about the show, when you're appearing on the show, whatever. But I'm glad that like my run had meaning for some people because of me being out. So that's been really special to me.
I find it interesting to talk to really successful people about, what helped them become successful. So to be a Jeopardy champ, you obviously need to know the answers to those questions. You need to know the technique of buzzing in and how you do it. You need to make calculations about which category, what am I going to do in Final Jeopardy? Are there any lessons from your experience that you would suggest to other people on how to deal with pressure or challenges?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that my approach to Jeopardy was very colored by my experience with debating when I was in high school.
Good, you mentioned debating.
Yes,
I didn't even have to bring it up.
Well, it's true though. Like I think that for me, I just kind of thought, okay, what aspects of this are similar to a situation that I've encountered before? And what worked for me back then and what did not work. So what that looked like for me with Jeopardy was, I know that mindset and headspace is such an important part of it. So I kind of thought back to whether it was with debating, whether it was when I was in school and had exams, like when I was doing these sort of stressful intellectual tasks, so to speak, what put me in a good spot to succeed. And it came down to, okay, I'm going to buy my bag of clementines at Trader Joe's because I know I'm not going to be able to eat lunch, but I need to keep my blood sugar up and have a little snack. I need to, listen to my pump up playlist in the morning of, some songs that I kind of brought back from my high school, morning getting ready in the hotel room debate tournament days.
Tell me one song that's on that list.
Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba.
Fantastic.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
It's a song that always kind of puts me in a good mood because I have that positive association of just like, okay, tub thumping's on and now I've got to go do business, which is funny because it's like a clubbing song about drinking many, many alcoholic beverages. But I think the getting knocked down and getting back up again, that portion of the lyrics feels resonant to confronting challenges, I suppose.
Well, and as you know, we share debating as a formative experience in school, so I'm glad you brought it up without me having to prompt you. One last question, Mattea. You are so young, you have so much ahead of you. What's next for you, do you think?
I mean, right now, I'm just kind of continuing to take opportunities that come to me as they come to me. But I think that what I've realized through this experience is, I hate resting on my age for anything, but, I am young. I do have, hopefully, many years of, living, working, enjoying myself left ahead of me.
Is there a dream job? Like, do you have a dream job?
No, I honestly don't. I think there's any number of things that I could be happy doing. And I think, for me, a dream job would need to give me time to spend with friends and family and to really like dedicate a significant amount of energy to that as well. So I haven't really answered your question, but I think the fact of the matter is you can say the name of a career or whatever, but if those elements aren't there, the sense of meaning and, the ability to also pursue other things that are meaningful to you, then, even if you're in the job that you've dreamed of since you were a little kid, you're probably not going to be enjoying it.
Well, we all knew you were smart and you're thoughtful and you're really nice to talk to. And I really enjoyed having a chance to sit down with you.
Oh, thank you. This has been a lot of fun.